The San Francisco 49ers finally got some good fortune on the backdrop of what feels like an endless sea of disappointment and bad luck. In today's video, I'm sharing that good fortune with you, some injury updates, an insider view on the controversial Ricky Pearsall. But I first have to know, I gotta know your take on this one. I know this guy divides opinion, but Chase Sr. recently had a very interesting question that he posted on Twitter. I want you to read it, and I want you to let me know what you think about it because I think this is fascinating. Basically, Chase Sr. understandably is saying that the 49ers really need to start elevating some other players on the squad, getting rookies in there, get some depth players in there, and see what they really have for you in the future. Because now you're really starting to think about 2025. Yeah, it's a possibility something could happen this season, but it's so incredibly unlikely that you really should be getting a look, this is the argument at least, at 2025. And I like this a point of view from the perspective that I do agree that the 49ers need to be making sure, getting a look at who these other guys are. I don't think it's at the cost of some of the players that maybe Chase Sr. suggests. So I'm interested to know what you think in the comments on this one. But basically he says, Ben Barch over Aaron Banks. You already know what you got out of Aaron Banks. Let's see what Ben Barch could do. Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowan, get them more reps, even if it means Deebo Samuel plays less. I respect that take massively. The only problem with that is I believe that Kyle Shanahan thinks the best way to win is with Deebo on the field. If that's the way that Kyle feels, never in a million years is he going to put Jacob Cowan out there instead of Deebo Samuel. I'm sorry to say that. I understand the take, though. I would like to see them getting more reps with that, 100%. Elevate Mason Pline from the practice squad. Drake Nugent at center over Jake Brendel. I would love to see that personally. I think we know what we have in Jake Brendel. And I don't think it's what any of us really prefer. And it's actually interesting to me, Chris Foerster is such a center guy. Like, that's part of his gig. So I would love to see the center position elevated. I'd love to see Drake Nugent in there and just see what he can do, right? I think that was interesting there. I'll give Larry Krueger some credit on really recognizing the value Drake Nugent was before a lot of people were talking about him during training camp. Okay, D. Winters over Devondre Campbell. I like it. I don't love it. I like it a lot, though, because I like that we've been seeing a lot more D. Winters. I'd like to see D. Winters more. But I wonder. I'm just being honest with you guys. I don't see the 49ers dropping Devondre Campbell at the end of the season. Because of how big the signing, I just think that they're going to keep him around or they're going to find a way to ship him off in some kind of a deal of some kind. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't really know if it helps you to drop Devondre Campbell. That being said, I, again, agree with wanting to see more of D. Winters, and I suppose that probably has to come at the cost of somebody, which, with Dre Greenlaw coming back soon, it's going to have to be somebody like Devondre Campbell. Now, moving on, though. Jalen Moore at left tackle if Trent Williams is too banged up because he's played well the last couple of weeks. And that's definitely a good asterisk from Chase Sr. I agree with the asterisk there, even though it's not an asterisk. Jalen Moore recently has looked pretty decent. Let's see him with our actual starting quarterback in normal weather. That we haven't seen in the last 2 weeks, and we have seen a lot from Jalen Moore over in the past, so we kind of know what to expect. We'd like to give him another shot there. I think that would be interesting. More Evan Anderson at defensive tackle, more Sam Okuwanu at defensive end and defensive tackle. I love those. And is there anybody else that you missed? I thought this was a really interesting discussion, so I look forward to seeing what you guys think in the comments on that one. If you're new here, by the way, I'm Nate. I make daily 49ers content. Subscribe if that's what you're looking for. But the real positive good fortune is that this shoulder thing going on with Purdy didn't get worse after playing in a game. And that was my biggest concern, especially playing in the type of game that he did, that the 49ers are you never know Monday, Tuesday, kind of exactly what's happening. And then you find out Wednesday, oh, thank goodness, Brock Purdy was a go again today. That's fantastic news for that shoulder because there was some concerns going into that game against the Buffalo Bills that injury was going to be a more serious deal, that a lot of people were thinking, oh my goodness, this is a lot worse than we thought. So that's fantastic news. On the downside, because there's always going to be a negative, isn't there? Nick Bosa and Trent Williams, again, did not practice today on Thursday as I'm recording this, which means that they're likely at this point not going to play. Now, the general rule of thumb is if a player is not limited by Thursday, they're not playing in Sunday. You make exceptions for guys like Nick Bosa and Trent Williams because of their veteran status and because of the quality they bring on the field, the difference makers that they are. So, yes, they're not completely ruled out like you might a normal player, especially a younger player. However, it does not look good for seeing Nick Bosa and Trent Williams this Sunday. So they're not going to be there, and that's a real bummer because I think there are a couple ways you can get after this Bears team. But the first one is putting pressure on that rookie quarterback, Caleb Williams. If you can get pressure on that guy, then it puts you in a position to make him make mistakes. And we've seen that multiple times this season. The second one is that run defense. And, of course, run defense is always going to make an impact against any team in the NFL because its running game is a part of the game. Obviously, some teams more than others based on how they scheme things up. But I think that Nick Bosa, although he's not always, he's not like exactly a run threat benefit, right? Like there are very few times where he's a huge impact player in the run defense. I think forcing the offense to think more about everything they're doing does have an impact overall. So would have loved to see Nick Bosa and Trent Williams out there, of course, this weekend. And we'll hold on to hope that they might actually be healthy, but unfortunately that's probably not looking likely. On the positive end, however, Deebo Samuel is looking likely. That's great news because he was out there again today, which makes everybody feel like he's going to be good to go for Sunday. He's getting interviewed. Everything just felt it's going to happen. And as I've said multiple times in the last several weeks, Deebo Samuel for me is the most consistent defender we've had all season long. He's had the most up games with the lowest number of mistakes, in at least meaningful mistakes in my mind. So I would say Deebo Samuel right now is kind of, maybe MVP is the wrong word, but because I think Nick Bosa provides more value. I think Fred Warner at times provides more value, even banged up as he is. I think Deebo Samuel, though, gives you kind of that most consistent player, that guy that you need in the nickel package, making a huge difference at the slot or in the corner, like all of it, okay? Continuing on from Deebo Samuel, Dre Greenlaw edges closer. That's also some positive news that we're going to take there. Dre Greenlaw, of course, probably not going to play this weekend, and you can understand how that's going to go. Kyle Shanahan said yesterday, in case you missed it, that Dre Greenlaw was probably a most likely, I think is the words that he used, for the Rams. And because of the short turnaround from Sunday to Thursday being the Rams game, I think it's pretty hard to imagine you're going to see Dre Greenlaw this Sunday and then 4 days later on Thursday. It just seems unlikely that you're going to see that kind of action coming back from such a long-term injury. In my mind, at least, it seems unlikely. So if you ask me, if you ask me, I would imagine that you're not going to see Greenlaw this Sunday because he would not have a full week to rest, and you're going to wait, and he's going to be your fresh legs, so to speak, when come Thursday against the Rams. Two really important games that are 100% season definers. Hufanga's Magic Club was out there in action in practice again today, and the Magic Club is an interesting thing there on his messed up wrist, of course, saying that he feels he's going to find a way for it to be an advantage in terms of punching the ball out, things like that. We'll have to wait and see. We know Hufanga's real strength is his speed, his downhill nature, and his intensity, right? And I would wonder a little bit if you take away some of the tackling ability. We saw him this season when he did come back, not looking 100% healthy, missing tackles. It does concern me a little bit that he's not going to be able to fully wrap guys up the same way. But we'll have to wait and see how it plays out and if he gets significant game time on Sunday or not. We'd definitely love to see a healthy Huff back on the field. I think it would make a massive impact. Now, let's talk about Ricky Pearsall real quick. I wanted to get to Ricky Pearsall. This is what Kyle Shanahan said about Ricky Pearsall and about how things went with him and how he's doing. The stat that's been flying around is the 63 routes run with no passes, or like 2 passes or whatever it was, 2 completions in the last 3 games. I think Ricky got a little banged up in Green Bay, battled through that a lot, still was able to play a lot through it and helped us out at punt return. It is worth noting, by the way, because Matt Barrows talked about this, it is worth noting that he never ended up on the injury report. So leave that for what it is, okay? I don't judge much from the Buffalo game. I think we had 6 completions that were screens, and I think 4 other guys had like a 4-yard catch except for Juwan Jennings on a skinny. There was nothing really with Ricky there. We had a chance to hit them downfield one time, and he slipped, but that was nothing against him for that game. So basically, Ricky Pearsall, according to Kyle Shanahan's doing just fine. Nothing to worry about. He's all right. Now, the fan base, of course, is pretty divided on Ricky Pearsall. A lot of folks feel like the first-round draft pick was a big mistake, and it's especially understandable in a season with so many injuries and so many positions feeling like we did not have proper depth in any of those positions. It's really easy to feel like that was a mistake pick. We'll have to wait and see what Ricky Pearsall looks like after 2 full seasons, let's say. We're excited to have gotten him for a portion of this season, a healthy portion of the season. It's nice to see both he and Isaac Guerrero, knock on wood, have not had recurring injuries from training camp on. That's hugely beneficial because that was a huge concern for me in training camp, into preseason, into those opening weeks. I was very concerned about the recurring nature of the injuries for both of these individuals. And so obviously you put the gunshot wound aside, and you just say anything we got out of this season is a bonus. Anything that Ricky Pearsall does is a bonus and a gift from God that he has life. But I think in terms of what he gives you as a player on the field, which is obviously what fans and what coaches are going to be evaluating him for, I feel like he started off really strong. We started to feel like we were seeing something out of Pearsall, and I feel like, this is my take, let me know what you think in the comments, but I feel like there's a correlation between Brock Purdy's drop-off and maybe shoulder tenderness, shoulder soreness, that kind of stuff, around the same time Ricky Pearsall's kind of dropping off, okay? I think there's a lot of correlation there. You add there the Brandon Allen game, don't really hold that against Pearsall. You have the Snow game, don't really hold that against Pearsall. They hardly even threw the ball in general. And if anybody was going to get more targets, it should have been George Kittle. So I'm not going to really feel too badly about the Buffalo Bills game. The game before, the Green Bay game, I think you can hold him a little bit accountable, for not creating more separation, especially considering that's something he believes he's here to do, and that's part of his job, is being a man beater. So I think the 49ers need it. I think the 49ers need a man beater, and they need Pearsall to be one of those guys. I think that the 49ers are still missing Aiyuk for some of those deep balls and some of that, and I think if they don't force the deep ball down the field, they don't get Brock Purdy throwing those 20-yard plus passes, even if they don't catch him, then I think it's going to be hard for guys like Ricky Pearsall to really get his touches. And I think that comes down to guys like Juwan Jennings, who's playing in an Aiyuk position, but still feels like his utilization is like the Juwan Jennings we've seen last year. So that's where it's a little fuzzy for me, and I'm not a genius like Kyle Shanahan, so I'm just going to wait and see and watch and review, and we'll see what we think as we go. But as far as I'm concerned, I think Ricky Pearsall is definitely under the microscope right now. I'd love to see Brock Purdy have a fantastic game. I'd love to see his shoulder healthy and see what could really come out of this offense. We'll have to wait and see what that's going to look like, of course. But listen, this is a big moment. 3 days to go against the Chicago Bears. They're going to be, off of that huge high from having the coach fired. In this exact scenario, too, it's like 10 times worse. It's not just the coach got fired and everything's shaken up and players go out there and just tend to play a little more aggressively, a little more intensely. Everything feels like my job's on the line. You already get that. But the worst part about this is that players really felt that clearly, and they've said enough to make it pretty obvious that players felt like Eberflus was the problem and that they were there doing their job, and if he did his job, they would have won. That's how it felt. That's how they interpreted events. So with him gone, they now have to prove that. They now have to back that up. I think the 49ers are going to see the best Chicago Bears has to offer all season long right now. And again, it's just a perfect storm for the stinking 49ers where every single game feels like this. It feels like either a team's coming there and we did something bad to them in the past, like Green Bay, and they're just ready to prove it, right? It just feels like every single week we're getting the best version of a lot of these teams, with the exception to, I suppose, Kansas City. We probably didn't see the best of Kansas City, right? I guess there have to be a couple games in there. Doesn't really matter. The point is, they're going to be a tough team to beat. The 49ers are going to have to go out there and be nasty, be aggressive, be intense, and hopefully have a dynamic offense that can lead the way and get to an early lead, which is when the 49ers in the past couple of seasons have really thrived, getting that early lead and then trying to just keep the foot on the gas, right? We'll have to wait and see how it goes. Let me know what you think in the comments. It's going to be an interesting one, of course. And make sure you're subscribed if you don't want to miss out on any of my commentary, I suppose, and my takes on how things are going. I very much appreciate you and appreciate your part in the community, your comments, liking, all of that, watching the videos. I appreciate you. We're having a great time. I'm having a great time anyways, even though it's been a bit of a downer of a season. I always find a way to get to this point in the week, and I'm feeling like somewhat positive about things. And then, by Monday, you know how you're feeling. But not this week. This week's going to be a good one. It's going to be different. What a time to be alive.